You're listening to the Level Flight Podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network.
And welcome back to episode 18 of the Level Flight Podcast. As always, I'm joined by Brian.
Hello.
And Elliot.
Hey.
And it is dark times in Winnipeg right now when it comes to the Jets. The tone, if you listen to a podcast like 2 months ago from us and you listen to one now, it's a lot different because the Jets have lost 9 of their last 11, 7 of their last 8. We've got a lot of games to recap here, but it is not going well, to say the least. Starting with the home and home last week against Edmonton. The road game, the Jets got boat raced out of Edmonton. They scored 3 goals, bonus classified them as garbage time goals in the third period, but they went down 5-0 before the end of the second, and the game was just over. Pulled Hellebuck. Just an ugly loss. What were your guys' initial thoughts? This is the ugliest loss that we're going to talk about here, at least I'd say. But yeah, Brian, what are your thoughts on this one?
It just kept getting worse because I was looking, and it was essentially just like every time I'd look up, it would be just another goal that they'd allow, and it was one of those situations too where I'd look at and reasonably I'd say I don't know if anyone could stop that. So I'm like, this is just the team around Hellebuck saying we don't have anything in the tank right now. No Dubois, so the lineup was all sort of messed up. I think they ran 11-7 that game. So there was a bunch of weird line juggling, and it was miserable. It was one of those things where you get down, was it 6-1 at one point, and even though they added the 2 garbage time goals, as you said, it was one of those games you're like, just pack it in, head back to Winnipeg and figure it out for tomorrow.
Back to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll preface this by saying I was at a taverns in Brandon, so I'm like looking up and I'm looking back and forth. And the same thing with Brian. I'm like half paying attention to the game because by the time I got down, I was at the Wheat Kings game before. And so then by the time I'm looking up and checking the score, like it was already like 2-0. And so I'm already mentally checked out. I'm not even watching the game. And then I'd just be checking. Oh, Kyle Yamamoto scored again. Oh, he scored again. Oh, okay. Like, yeah, it was just bad. Like that's all it is. It was just bad.
Yeah. The defensive breakdowns were not great. Like, to put it lightly, like the goals that were scored were just like high danger areas, top of the slot, backdoor. Like, it was just like, how can you even ask, like you said, Brian, how can you even ask Hellebuck to make half of these saves? Yeah. But then they pull him and then play him the next night in what was probably the game of the year.
Barn burner.
If I'm being honest.
It was definitely the most exciting.
Yeah. I had my own hockey game, which I tweeted as soon as I got out because the Jets were up 6-5 when I got off the ice. And I tweeted, I'm mad that I'm missing the game of the year. But I rewatched it, and yeah, it was insanely exciting. But it was nice to see the Jets get a win. My take on this game is Jack Campbell handed them this game. Like, the Jets did generate enough. Hellebuck, again, we'll probably get into it, but he's struggled lately, gave up 5 goals here. But the Jets scored more. It was a shootout from start to finish. Jack Campbell gave up 3 or 4 mad goals, but hey, at this point, you take the points you can get. So that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Jack Campbell, I don't know.
It was the real issue here, and as you said, we might jump into it just a little bit later. We're starting to see what the team looks like when they don't have someone bailing them out in the crease.
Yeah.
And that's something that's been brought up several times. You need to either improve the team around him to try and actually get a consistent effort, and so you don't have to rely on him as much, or you need to hope and pray that he maintains an entire Vezina campaign with what he's already facing, which is very far-fetched. So no, you're getting to a point where he's probably just in his own little funk here, but the Jets aren't really doing enough to try and balance that out. They're not closing, the door defensively at all. That's the thing. They still gave up 5 goals, which you can't possibly nail all 5 onto the starter.
No.
So it's a matter of how on earth are you supposed to, close things out when you're trying to, maintain somewhat of a lead when you don't know how to defend around your goalie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Brian, this is just, I don't know. You can't ask Connor Hellebuck to do everything. Like, we've done that for so many years, and you're gonna run out of that magic at some point. So in this game, we got a little bit lucky because we decided to figure out how to score. Yes, is Jack Campbell to blame for some of it? If you're an Oilers fan, yeah. But that game was for the neutral. That wasn't for a fan of either team, because it was just like there's too many like, not to say
it's
that
just fun.
Yeah, it's fun, but that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's a game for the neutral because it's so high paced and so high scoring, and there were a bunch of lead changes, and the momentum was shifting all over the place. And so, if you're a fan of either the Oilers or the Jets, probably wasn't the most fun game to watch. I know that, but for somebody else who has no connection to either team, it was probably just a really fun game to take a look at. But other than that, I don't really know if you can take any other takeaways from this game other than you. And I keep mentioning on Twitter, you did what you had to do. You do what you do to take the 2 points. They did that in this game. Oh, but they didn't do that for the next 2. But I'll let Connor segue into that one.
Let's move
That's
on.
a good
Yeah,
segue.
let's move on. Yeah, let's move on. The next game is Monday night. Lowest attended game of the season.
The Sharks are bad. We will preface that.
I've got his bobblehead up here, but it was Kyle Connor's bobblehead night. With the real hair. You love to see it. Lowest attended game of the year. San Jose is not a big draw. It's a Monday night. I get it. Dubois is back in this game. They're controlling play for, I'd say, 55 minutes, 56 minutes of this one. And then in classic Jets fashion, they crumble in the last minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then lose the game. There's a lot of issues to come out of this game. But I'll let you, Brian, I know you have a lot of issues with the deployment at the end. Some of the positives, though, like they did dominate for 55 minutes of this game. If it wasn't for James Reimer making 2 unreal saves off of Morgan Barron or the Jets missing 2 wide open nets, they definitely win this game. That being said, it's San Jose, and you need the 2 points. Like, yeah, they still got a point. Silver lining. You can't take moral victories at this time of the year. And this was a classic example of that, where they dominated, but they only got a point. And against San Jose, that's just unacceptable.
It's at this point you do or you don't.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, I hate the whole moral victories thing because you can take things to build off of, but if that was the case, they would have built off of that effort against San Jose and actually done something different to finish their chances. Which shocking. It's not like we were saying that they needed a finisher or something or someone actually to help their scoring. Aside from that, Edmonton.
This isn't fantasy hockey. Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's be real here. No, but like they can't finish their chances. They've had so many grade A shots, the last few games, and they lost the last 2 because they just couldn't beat a goalie who, obviously, every goalie has their hot games. And we know, obviously a Marc-Andre Fleury, especially from his 2018 showing against the Jets in the Western Conference Final. But that was also in 2018. You should be able to take advantage of an aging Marc-Andre Fleury and find a way to actually beat him. There was a lot of him being out of position and them not taking advantage of it. But no, my issues come at the end there. And I said it on Twitter. I said, they essentially they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah.
They had that game in their hands. And firstly, the first issue is the fact that we hear all about how you want your best defensive players out there in the last little bit to try and protect the lead. I would say aside from Lowry, every single player on that unit trying to defend that lead is a way below average defender. You got guys like Pionk, you got Wheeler, you got Kyle Connor, and like obviously he is great offensively, but Morrissey with Pionk, their defensive metrics out the window. So you've got that unit. Then it gets worse because
then there's more.
For whatever reason, Wheeler just sends it down the ice and gets the icing call. Which just either you flip it up, you find someone off the wall, you do some sort of bounce play off the wall to get it to stop before firing it in. Not just awful. You can't do it.
I mean, I can't really add much other than that, like to what Brian said, but we talked about adding a finisher. Like, there's just been too many chances. We'll get to it in the Wild game, but like Kyle Connor had a free goal. He put it right on Marc-Andre Fleury's pad. Like, we just, I get some of that has to do with puck luck, some of it, but we just need to put the puck in the net. Like, it's as simple as that. I know that's the name of the game, and you can laugh me all you want, but we have to do that. And we're clearly not right now. We just, and I get some of it, like I said, has to do with luck, but it also just has to do with, like, you just got to do it. So, and I'm sure right now we were getting a little lucky with some of the goals earlier in the season. So this is kind of turning around on us. We're not getting as lucky. Hopefully, I'm being a little bit hopeful that some of that will change. And I thought maybe some of that was going to change from what we saw in the Edmonton game, but clearly that wasn't. But you got to wrap that game up. Like,
yeah,
I'll leave it at that. It's as simple as that. You got to wrap that game up.
Like I said, it's San Jose. Like, they want Connor Bedard. They don't want to win this game. Like they that's what they're going for. The way that the Jets are losing is becoming a lot more like of a theme with these like late leads being blown and such. It's frustrating because, like you said, Brian, they took defeat from the jaws of victory, or whatever you're saying was. That was quite good, actually, I must say. But like we talked about it, they needed another finisher. They needed to add up front. Nino and Nemesnikov have been great. You couldn't ask for a better like first 4 games from them. But yeah, it's rough right now. And then we move on to last night, Minnesota divisional game, big game because the Jets going into it were only 4 points back of Minnesota. And they lose 4-2. Like Brian said, Marc-Andre Fleury makes 46 out of 48 saves. Just like old times, he steals a game in Winnipeg. And then, again, the finishing talent pops up yet again because those 48 shots, they only get 2 goals. The third goal for the Wild was really, really bad on Hellebuck's part.
Yeah.
It was basically a shot that went 5-hole from near the dot that he could see the whole way.
He must have been cheating or something because, was there someone else? Was there a?
There was.
Was it a 2-on-1?
I think it was a 2-on-1, but he shot it early. Like the Wild,
but I'm like, was he
just
assuming that because it was that far out, it was going to go out with the pass? Because that was just awful.
Yeah, that was bad. And then that ends up being the game winner, which hurts even more. But what were your guys' thoughts on this one? Because again, divisional opponent, they clearly came to play. Like, they played great. Bonus after the game was like, we dominated. This was one of the best games we played. And they still lose. I just don't really know what they have to do at this point.
It's well, the issue here is the fact that at some point or another, they're going to become so overly demoralized because they can't win even the games they dominate. That's 2 games in a row where they were in control for 95% of the game, and they managed to hold both teams to only 3 goals for the last 2 games. But the issue is, and I just looked at this, in 9 of their past 12 games, 3 or less goals for the Jets.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be a very talented forward core, regardless of the deadline additions.
Yeah.
And you bring in Niederreiter, who has a scoring touch and has been one of the best players since he's come in.
Yeah.
Got a couple of goals.
We thought.
Yeah. Nemesnikov hasn't scored, but he's actually looked quite good. But the rest of the team, where are they?
Yeah, you're missing a lot from Ehlers and Connor right now. Ehlers has 1 goal in his last 18 games or something. Kyle Connor has 1 goal in his last 7 or 8. I'm looking at right here.
Yeah.
Scheifele has kept his scoring numbers up.
So was Morrissey, apparently.
So has Morrissey.
He's
those
got
two are
what,
still
2
scoring
multi-goal
goals.
games this week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Isn't he
Josh
one
Morrissey.
off the record
The
for a
goals by a
season?
defenseman?
Multi-game goals.
Oh,
I think
have
he's
no
like
clue.
one off of tying or taking.
Maybe.
I can't remember. They showed that on
Sportsnet.
on the Sportsnet broadcast at some point. But
yeah, but I was at this game and I tweeted about it. But I just want to share a little story. The like yelling shoot at the players has officially like gone off the rails at Jets games. Like they had 48 shots in this game. They had like 15 shots to end the first, right? And then in the first 5 minutes of the second, they come out and blitz the Wild and get like 7 shots in the first 5 minutes of the period. So they're up to like 21, 22 shots in a period and a quarter. And then every time they step over the blue line, people are shoot. Morrissey's walking the line on his backhand. People are yelling shoot. Like, and then what Morrissey does is he cycles the puck down low. They cycle and they get a good chance in front. I'm like, okay, did you really want him to shoot that puck then? Because if he backhands it from the blue line, it's not even making it to the net and it's getting cleared out 3 seconds later. I'm all for yelling shoot on like a 3-on-1, like the 3-on-1 that Kyle Connor biffed and then the puck went the other way and they didn't even get a shot off. Yeah, yell shoot because you need a shot on a 3-on-1, right?
Yeah.
But when players are like cycling along the wall or like Morrissey's walking the line on his backhand, I just don't understand it there. And it reached a new high in the Wild game, which was weird for me because they had 48 shots, right? Like I understand that there was a 4 or 5 game stretch there where the team was overpassing, but they are well past that. They have had in the Edmonton game, they had right in the Edmonton game they had almost 40 shots. They might have had over. I'm not 100% sure, but I saw they had like 37 with 5 minutes left. The Sharks game they had near 40. The Wild game they had 48. Like this team is shooting the puck. That's not the problem anymore. Yeah, it used to be a problem. It's not the problem anymore. So that was just my thing being at the game.
We talked about it too. Like we said, like I think I mentioned it, and I think Connor, you seconded my motion because I think that was the episode. There was just the two of us. We both said we just need to start putting pucks on net at this point.
Yeah, like, and they have,
and they are, and so
I'm gonna start yelling pass.
Yeah,
start passing more. We got to rebalance it out. They're like passing too much, shooting too much.
I would prefer the team just to shoot too much. I'd rather them put 60 honestly, shots up than put up 15. Like,
and honestly, they have in the last 15 games. Even though they're sliding, I believe they're still like fringe top 10 in both like Corsi 4 and expected goals 4. Like they're honestly just suffering a little bit of it, or actually probably like a decent amount of it. Like probably half of their struggles right now is bad luck. Yeah. Simply because they're shooting a lot, they're generating the same amount of chances. Hellebuck's going through a bit of a slump, and when this team doesn't have Vezina caliber goaltending, they're gonna go on a slump like this, and that's all that really needs to be said about this slump right now. They're still doing fine. There are games where it's like what happened, like the Edmonton game on the road. But for the majority of the games, you look back on it and you think, okay, they actually played decent that game. They just didn't convert on their chances, and Hellebuck let in one meh goal. At least this last week, that was the case for me.
I mean, like half of their games, though, in the past 2 weeks, though, we've had to ask what happened. Yeah, like you're looking at games like the Colorado game, the Islanders game. Honestly, to an extent, you could back it up even further in the win over the Rangers.
Yeah, 100%.
Like there was one of those situations where you just looked and you go, they are so lucky to be out of there with a win. And coincidentally, after that point, suddenly Hellebuck's slump started.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of I think Travis Yost on TSN posted something today, and he described it as how the Jets rely almost comically much on Hellebuck. Like it's like ridiculous how much they're like essentially in their losses. He's playing still above league average, which is terrible. If you're getting above average goaltending, you should be able to, actually win the games.
Yeah,
not this team.
Simple as that.
That's not Winnipeg Jets hockey. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know. Unless you guys have anything else to say about those 4 games, we can move on to like the bigger topics. But
I'll probably talk about it when we get to some of the issues later, but I think my actual as much as I kind of advocated for us to talk about the power play deployment. I think one of the other things as we've been talking actually has to do with Kyle Connor. I'm a little worried. I know I shouldn't be, and I know we had this conversation like at the start of the year, but I think if he's not shooting the puck, like at least at that point he was shooting the puck and it just wasn't going in. Now he's not shooting the puck. So I'm a little bit concerned right now because if he's passing on the 3-on-1, where normally we're expecting him to either A, put it on net or wire one and score. So if he's not doing that, then I'm a little worried, especially even more about this team putting the puck in the net.
There's just too many names in the top 6 that have a question mark around them right now. Like Blake Wheeler, I don't think has scored in 11 games.
That's not his game though.
Yeah, but still, it's just like he's not generating. Like the line has been Ehlers, Dubois, Wheeler, and that line is just kind of
he's a pylon.
Okay, well, let's relax.
Also, pump the brakes.
I want to jump back here about Connor here. Kyle Connor, that is. Not our beloved other podcast member. I disagree, Elliot. I think he's still shooting just as much. It's just he's back to not scoring.
Yeah.
Like the last 5 games, in those games, he's got 6 shots, 4 shots. The only one where he wasn't actually shooting was the loss in Edmonton, where he only had 1 shot. But at the very least, he's got at least 3 shots in most of his games in the last little while.
It may just be situationally, and that could be it too. It could just be like, because there have been multiple 2-on-1s and 3-on-1s with him and Scheifele recently, especially in this last week, where they don't get a shot off, or him and somebody else, right?
Well, it's easy
it could just be me in my head.
Those, right? Like you're gonna remember those things where you're freaking out because they should be shooting on like a key play, but you're not gonna remember if he's doing a shot from the dot that it goes right into the goalie's chest, right? So you're gonna remember the situations where he didn't shoot and passed up a chance.
Maybe if you guys were both at Canada Life Center, you could have yelled shoot, and maybe he would have shot.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. There's not enough
that's the issue here.
Yelling shoot. It's like these are professionals.
You know why? Do you know why they aren't shooting enough? Because they aren't filling the stadium enough, so they can't hear enough people.
The lowest attended game of the year, the Sharks game, there wasn't enough people there to yell shoot in the first place. Wow. We're coming to some groundbreaking conclusions here.
Another groundbreaking conclusion. Management doesn't know how to add to a core, but
okay. We got a little bit off the rails. Well, yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, it's not off the rails as long as it's about the Jets.
So,
this team's off the rails. So.
NBA fans, it's time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet $5 and win $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, for a limited time, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and opt in and place a same-game parlay on any NBA game, and if it doesn't hit, you'll get a free bet back. Download the app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can bet $5 on the NBA and get $200 in free bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA with code THPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void in Ohio. See show notes for details.
Speaking of off the rails, they scratched Nate Schmidt the other day. Out of nowhere. Healthy scratch. Bonus said, we need better. We need more. From him specifically, not from the team, because they were asked, or he was asked, why'd you scratch Nate Schmidt? And he went, we need more. Plain and simple, which they scratch him in the game against Edmonton. Capobianco scores, and I thought he played great, honestly.
Him and Sandberg?
Yeah.
Wow.
Looked really good. And then Schmidt came back the next game and played very good against the Sharks.
And scored, didn't he?
Yeah, he scored. He scored late in the third to put him up 2-1.
That was a big
Bonus said Nate was very good tonight. Very happy for him to get that goal. He was much better today and much more consistent with his level of play. I wrote an entire article about this at the Hockey Writers, bit of a shameless plug, but
feel shame.
I feel very ashamed right now. But this should result in more players experiencing the same fate. If it worked for Schmidt and Bonus truly thinks that he played better, his level of play was more consistent, more players should be having their ice time reduced. And I'm not talking about Nikolai Ehlers, even though he is slumping. You can't just point to the same guy on offense every single time and bench him or reduce his ice time. I wrote in my article, like Blake Wheeler, we talked about him, hasn't looked himself lately, maybe reducing his ice time. I'm not talking about benching these players completely. We're talking about Kyle Connor, maybe giving him a few shifts off. Yeah, the Jets need goals, but they also need players to like generate them.
Yeah.
And then I also talked about Neil Pionk, because if Capobianco can come in and play well with Sandberg, then you can run Morrissey, DeMello, Dylan, Schmidt, Sandberg, Capo, and that's a pretty good defense core, especially if you have Sandberg and Capo producing positive results in a third pairing, which I'm confident they can. But then again, Logan Stanley scored last night. Anyways,
he loves
and he actually played
Winnipeg,
pretty
by
good.
the way.
He actually, apparently, he actually played pretty well last night. I will
Carter
say,
Brooks.
he did have a good one. Oh goodness. Yeah. No. What are your guys' thoughts on the Jets deciding to scratch Schmidt in the first place? And do you think it should result in the same fate for other players across the lineup?
I agree wholeheartedly that players should have been scratched probably earlier. Especially the veterans. Like you don't want to keep seeing the situation where guys like Sandberg are just the one to be taken out constantly because I'm
Right.
assuming just because he's younger,
Young.
because he's been, I'd say, probably the second best actual defender on the team this year. Obviously, his minutes are a little bit more sheltered, but you're still looking at someone who has incredibly positive results. And it's like, don't take someone out who's doing well. Like, though, I tweeted about this too, where the whole thing in the preseason, because there was the conversation about Villy and everything, and how Bonus was all about you need to earn your shot, and that's how you'll actually get a chance to play.
Right.
Sandberg has earned every right to remain in the lineup every single night. There's no reason he should be coming out over guys like Pionk. I mean Schmidt. I definitely he was fighting it. But you're looking at situations where they're taking the wrong guys out. And it's the same deal on the forward group. Like you shouldn't have Saku Manalainen in the lineup every night when you've got, AJF sitting out there. You got Gagne sitting out. What about that situation? Like they were rotating in and out so much that why did they suddenly just stop? Like I don't know what they're seeing where they've decided that certain guys have to remain in that role and others are the ones who are they become the the player that's constantly getting demoted or they're getting scratched. Like it shouldn't just be 2 or 3 guys every time.
Yeah. Like, look, do I 100% agree with the Schmidt benching, the scratching, I guess you can say. I maybe, but like Brian said, and Connor also mentioned in this article, I don't think they're like, I'm sorry, we'll keep at it, but like Neil Pionk, I don't think has played well enough to be in every night. Like you got to rotate some guys, and I don't think Sandberg's one of them. I will pose a question to both of you, and who would you say would be the next player to get scratched like this, like Schmidt? If it were to happen again, I'm not sure if it will, and I'm not sure if it will just be shifts off now. But who do you think would actually be the next guy to get taken out of the lineup because they've quote unquote played bad?
Are you saying like, or wait, you're saying like taken out of the lineup completely, not
like
yeah,
Schmidt,
okay.
Schmidt, not benched because we already know Ehlers is getting benched.
Right.
But
we already know that's happening.
Yeah,
I was gonna say Ehlers, just because like odds-on favorite every time to just get benched in the middle of a game for no reason. But I think honestly, because of how good Capobianco played, I think it's someone on defense, and I think it's Neil Pionk. Like it might be wishful thinking just because I personally think the Jets lineup is better served with Capobianco on that third pairing. But then again, I just can't see Bonus outright scratching anyone in the top 6.
No.
I just can't see it happening. So I think it has to be on defense. And then again, Sandberg's been rotating out, so I'm not going to count him.
Yeah.
Like them scratching Sandberg is just like a regular thing, which I find ridiculous because I honestly think he has like future top 4D potential, like good, solid number 4 defensive defenseman type potential, like Brendan Dillon. But I truly think it's either Pionk or it's Schmidt again, because they're not scratching Morrissey. Maybe it's DeMello. I
was actually going to wonder
Yeah.
that, because if you've noticed recently, whenever there's some sort of issue where they lose a few, DeMello is the one who's dropped in favor of Pionk, which that's why I'm like, Pionk isn't going anywhere, because
True. Yeah.
Bonus wouldn't keep putting him on the top pairing if that was the case.
Yeah, that's a good point. It usually does end up with Morrissey Pionk.
Yeah.
They've been running that for a few games now.
They did switch back in the third for a bit.
I don't, that pairing hasn't really posted great results, like really at all.
I don't know where they're getting that from, like where they think that works.
Well, I think they're treating what their thought process is. I think this is what I think they're thinking. Just a complete hunch, complete guess, is that Morrissey Pionk is treated as like an all offense pairing. So they're, every time there's an offensive zone face off, every time there's a high leverage situation, they're going to put those two out there. And then since Dylan and DeMello are the second pairing, Dylan DeMello, yeah, whatever.
Love that.
Yeah, love it too. They're like the all defense pairing, quote unquote. So they're getting the opponent's top line, the Kaprizov line, the McDavid's, all those lines, right? I think that's their thought process. But then again, Morrissey and Pionk are just getting shelled defensively, regardless. So I think they have to switch.
Well, that's not even my problem. Like, I haven't had a chance to get onto it on Twitter, but there are so many times on Jets goals that Pionk pinches at the exact wrong time. Like, there was one play, I can't remember which game it was, but he went to go pinch at the blue line and he went to go pin someone against the boards, and the puck just went right by him. Like, he was so focused on pinching to go get the puck, but then he got distracted by whatever player was there, and he pinned him against the boards, and then left, I think, Morrissey on the 2-on-1, and they went cross crease and scored. Or he'll go to the blue line to go get the puck when it's actually just safer for him to just shift over, play the man in front of him, and try to funnel him to the outside, then just go, because he just races for the puck. Like, I get you're an offensive defenseman, you want to pick the puck up and go, but there's a time and a place for that. Like, and that's my issue with him, is especially with this, it's just like, and then that same goal where he went and pinched the blue line and pinned, if I'm not mistaken, he turned around and looked at whatever forward was there and was like trying to tell him that he was supposed to cover for him. And I'm like, whoever that was at center ice. Like, what do you, he can't help you. You left Morrissey out to dry, and then Morrissey looks bad. Like I get their whole rotation of having the forward come back, but that's really only an offensive zone thing. That's when the defender comes into the zone with the puck or goes to play down low, and an offensive player, a forward, has enough time to come and circle back. Like that's my problem with him. He picks and chooses his, I guess you could say, quote unquote, battles at the completely wrong time, and he just doesn't make the correct play ever.
Yeah, I think bad pinches are like they stand out more than other defensive errors more than anything. Because
and he's worse at it.
It ends up in 2-on-1s. And then if you just hit rewind once on your TV, you can see that this defenseman is out of position, and then boom, they're gone. So it's just like a simple thing for people to catch on and be like, whoa, that looks bad. There are so many more defensive breakdowns, but yeah, I agree that the bad pinches are kind of getting out of hand.
And I'm not saying that other guys aren't doing it, but and that's not the only error that the defense has been making. I'm just saying, and I know it, like you said, it's the most visual, but
it's the most detrimental. It's the easiest to point out. It's like,
and his are the most blatant too.
They're all
like his are always the most blatant. You look and go, oh, why did you do that? Like it's just where are you? And that's all I'm trying to say. His are the worst, and he does them at the worst times possible, and he's at most. And I know, obviously, when you pinch at the wrong time, that defenseman is the most at fault. I'm not saying other defensemen aren't doing it, because a bunch of them have, but most of his mistakes are doing that, and it's always costly. Always.
Yeah, I to circle back to our original discussion about the scratching, I do think that this should result in some more players being benched or reduced. But then again, if this coaching staff actually scratches someone in the top 6, I will be very shocked, because they seem to go into every game with whatever their top 6, Dubois, Wheeler, Ehlers, Niederreiter, all those guys. But then Ehlers is the odd man out every game. So we'll see, because losing 9 of 11, you don't really want to start now for benching players, right? Like, you don't want to bench Cal Connor for half a period when you need goals, right? Your team has struggled to score, and Cal Connor is the best goal scorer on this team, so it's tough, right? But decisions do have to be made, so we will see, because they have a tough week coming up that we have highlighted a few times. But yeah, unless there's anything else you guys want to get into that that the Jets are struggling with just in general, because we talked about the scratching, we've talked about the defensive breakdowns, we've talked about Hellebuyck. If there's anything else you want to wrap up on, go ahead.
Just a quick hit on the power play. Like, I know we've talked about about in the past, so I don't want to get too much into it. But I was reading. Connor can quote me on what the name of the book is. The 2023 playbook.
Hockey Tactics by Jack Hahn.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that great book. I've already read a bunch of it already. I immediately, obviously, we cover the Jets. I went straight to the Jets section, read through everything. I look at the power play setup. I know it's changed, but when that book was made, that had Ehlers on the first line, and it and I'm not even going to get into the whole he should be on the line and like that whole discussion of he's the best one at bringing the puck in and setting up everything. But I don't know if obviously that needs to go back. And I've been an advocate of that with the lines, especially if Perfetti does come back at this point this season. But when we have an almost healthy lineup, the lineup needs to be the same as it was when we were winning. Because I don't know why that ever changed. And the same with the power play. The power play was working. And for one game, it didn't work. We went 0 for 3 or 0 for 4. And we've gone to this completely different setup. And I actually think that not that the setup has changed, because it is the exact same. Dubois is still in the same spot. And Kyle Connor's still in the circle. And Scheifele's still kind of in that bumper spot.
Niederreiter. Well, yeah, I think now that Niederreiter's on the top pairing, they've put him in the bumper and Scheifele back on the outside, on the left circle there, the line A spot.
Yeah. But either way, as it was working before in the first place, so it didn't need to change. And 2, I don't even, other than setup, I think stylistically they've changed. They're not doing the same stuff. Like I know right now they're just kind of throwing the puck on net, and I know Connor and I talked about it, but we said they should do that with the second unit, because that second unit doesn't really have much. This first unit should probably be trying to work the puck around and move the puck and try to move the penalty killers. They don't do that. It goes Connor, Morrissey, and it just kind of goes across the top of the blue line and in the circles, and then they just take a shot. And most of the time, it's Morrissey from the point. Nobody's in front. Like, Dubois is just standing at the side of the net. He's not even doing what he does best in being in front, being a screener. Because funny enough, when he does, oh my God, the puck went in the net. But just to quickly get on that, I think stylistically that needs to change again. Because reading that book reminded me of this was the system that was working, and the stylistic play that they were playing it in that shape was working. So I'm not sure what bonus, or is it Arneal that runs the power play? Or
I believe Arneal runs the PK. I believe it's Marty Johnson. I think. I'm not 100% sure.
Either way, whoever it is, the coaching staff. Let's just say this general arc of the coaching staff, because I'm also going to say the lines too. Whoever on the coaching staff, obviously bonus has a hand in the lines, but whoever changed the power play style, and not the shape of the style, that needs to go back. I don't understand why that ever changed, because it was working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. and that's my whole last little bit of a quick hit.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Ehlers already on this pod, and where we'd like to see him play and how he's always getting benched. Power play 1, I think, is the number one place I do want to see Ehlers, just because he generates more receiving that pass at the blue line and cutting down with speed than power play one has generated in weeks. Honestly, with that, when he gains entry and he gets that pass and he's shooting, he's passing, he's finding deflections. He's so good on that left flank and cutting down. I think that the power play does need an injection of life and a change. I posted a clip today of the Moose running a power play last night in Abbotsford. It was a 5-on-3. But if you want to go and watch the clip, the Manitoba Moose have won 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. They played that 5-on-3 like their season was on the line, and it was a 1-goal game in the playoffs of Game 7 of the Calder Cup. Like the urgency is just there. They're passing, they're moving, they're shooting, they're like fighting for pucks. They're going like the Jets power play is just like pass, stop, look for a seam. It's not there. But the Moose, like they're just flying. And that's been a constant theme the entire year, is that the Moose are incredibly urgent on their power play. They play like they have 30 seconds left in the power play the entire 2 minutes. And it's great because they put in effort. And I'm not saying the Jets don't put in effort. Obviously, they put in effort. I'm just saying it's a little slow.
Stylistically,
all the plays,
it's different.
It's slow. The passes to Kyle Connor, even if he won times that the goalie's in full position because the pass is slow. They can't win a face-off, so it's getting cleared immediately. There's a lot of issues, but the Ehlers going back on PP1 and more urgency, I think, would be the two things that I would highlight.
Speed and style. That's what it is.
And one of my issues too, and the biggest culprit of this is Blake Wheeler, is constantly relying on that cross-ice seam pass to try and get someone at the dots. More often than not, it's picked off in the middle of the ice and cleared. It always results in a change in possession. Like that. It's also the thing too, you don't have a line A over there where it's like a guaranteed grade A chance because of how quickly he can get that shot off. You're trying to feed this pass through on every single attempt. And it very clearly everyone has a book on us because they're always ready to defend it. I don't know how the rest of the team hasn't seen this. But every single time they try to feed a pass right through the middle of the ice, it's broken up. And
have they converted on one of those yet this year? That's a stat I'd want to know.
I mean, off the top of my head, and I don't have the stat in front of me on this or anything, I don't recall the last time they did.
On a cross seam pass?
Yeah, on a power play, and I'm not even just saying Blake Wheeler, a cross seam, because I know Scheifele throws them too. He loves throwing them to Kyle Connor. Yeah, he loves throwing them to Kyle Connor.
And Connor started throwing them too. Like it's like they're being told to do it, and it's the thing that works the least now.
Yeah, it's not working. It's not there.
They popularized it, and now.
Yeah, I don't know. If you guys have anything else on the power play, we can get back into it. But I think that's the main thing for me. That's another thing. A power play can bail you out when your goaltender's struggling. Yeah. And it's not doing them any favors right now. So that's something that
last night and the Sharks game probably would have been won like easily if both games easily if we had just scored once or twice on the power play.
0 for 6 in the Sharks game. I believe 0 for 3 last night. Yeah. I haven't double checked, but yeah. That you get one goal, it changes the game, right? So I said at the start that the tone would be different, and it was, to say the least.
I'm
if
worried.
You thought it was more negative. It's
coming up here.
That's what's going on. Yeah. The next 4 games, they go on the road. The last game's at home, but they go on the road. Saturday they get Florida. Sunday they get Tampa Bay. Next Tuesday they get Carolina, and then they come back home Thursday against the Boston Bruins, one of the best teams in NHL history. So this is going to be a rough stretch. If there's a silver lining, Florida's like second night of a back-to-back. I think Tampa's struggling as of late. Carolina's a juggernaut and Boston's a juggernaut. So it's just those first 2 games, really. But the Jets need to figure out. This is why points against San Jose and a game where you dominate Minnesota, that's why they were so crucial.
Divisional opponent.
When you have tough games coming up on the road, it's going to get tough. And I posted this morning on Twitter, according to tankathon.com, they calculate strength of schedule. The Flames have the easiest schedule in the NHL from now until the end of the season. And the Jets have, I think, like they're like middle of the pack. They're like 17th. Yeah. But then again, if they go 0-4 in these next 4 games, and Calgary has 4 games against like Anaheim, Arizona, Vancouver, like these terrible teams. Next week at this time, we could be talking about a team that's on the outside looking in.
Like,
so
essentially,
and no Dubois either, because
like
he's
not taking the trip.
apparently.
Yeah. And like the issue here is, right, so as you laid out the next 4 games for us, next 4 games for Calgary is Anaheim, Ottawa, Arizona, Vegas. Easily I could see them winning it 2 of those.
Yeah, maybe 3 if they beat Ottawa.
And let's say the Jets, they have a really unsuccessful trip. Even if Calgary wins the next, like they let's say they go on a stretch, they win 4 straight. You split, suddenly you're tied in the standings.
Boom.
Yeah. Like it's that, like there's so little room for error at this point.
At the worst time.
And you're now relying on other teams screwing up, which is not how you want to do it. Like
No.
you have to win your own battles.
If there's a silver lining, which I'm getting tired of that term. Honestly, I can't believe I just used it because there's been a lot of silver linings. I know. There's been a lot of silver linings.
4.
Okay. All right. There's been a lot of those things in Winnipeg over the last 2 weeks, but the Jets are only, I'm trying to pull it up here because this West is so, they're at 75 points. They just lost to Minnesota last night. It's up to 81. So that gap is widening a bit, but a 6-point gap on second place in the Central Division. Dallas is also at 81, but has a game in hand.
Yeah.
But then again, if the Jets go 4-0 on this next trip, they could be back in second place. Like it's such a weird
defense and going for the division title again. Like
exactly. If they turn it around and Hellebuck gets back to his Vezina form and they keep dominating in the shot department, I'm sure that they'll be fine. But the points that they've already lost out on were and will remain to be very crucial points.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of the upcoming schedule. But unless you guys have got anything else, I think we'll end it on that. They've got the 4-game trip coming up next week. We may have something in the works with a guest, so stay tuned for that. We will announce it on Twitter if we do. But yeah, this was fun. Even though it sounded like we weren't very happy throughout.
It's all about
there's a lot of things. Yeah, there's a lot of things to get down on right now. But like I said, if you want I'm not going to say it. If you want a positive outlook, the Jets are right there in the West. So keep watching, keep cheering. It should be a big week coming up against some good teams. So you'll watch some good hockey, at least at one end of the ice. But yeah, from the 3 of us, from Brian and Elliot, thank you again for listening. Episode 18 of the Level Flight Podcast. It was a good one. We kept it short this time, which is nice. We ran long a few times, but it's nice to get in and get out. A little 45 minutes. Should be good. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and go Jets.
Go Jets.
You've been listening to the Level Flight Podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network.